Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. I'm live, or some version of it, from Boston, from the beautiful Ames Hotel, which has given me the business center to myself to be able to do this. We've had some interesting difficulties getting this one off the ground, so let's get right to it. Joining us from Half Moon Bay is Robert Scoble.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing,
I'm still
Robert?
jittery, but oh well.
Now listen, this is paradise. Supers and everything. Wow. Okay. Joining us from Los Angeles is Danny Sullivan.
Hello.
Hi, Danny.
Hi.
¿Qué pasa?
Bien. ¿Y tú? I've run to the end of my Spanish now.
Yeah. Me too. Both.
Which may have been French. I don't know. It's mixed up.
Yeah, I think it's French. A bientôt.
Oh yeah,
that means until later. That's the only thing I know. And from I'm not sure where, Kevin Marks. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi there. I'm in San Francisco. I'm in the Creamery, which is the coffee shop right by the station, and it's a little noisy. So sorry about that.
Okay, well you can do the muting honors. Let's start with Robert Scoble. What's going on?
Well, I've been playing a lot with Android, so I got a brand new HTC device, a DNA, and that's my iPhone. And I'm learning learning to be an Android fanboy, and it's really difficult. It'd be fun to talk to Kevin. What I wrote yesterday was the notifications just are not even close to as useful, and you can see it here. Despite having a bigger and higher resolution screen on the HTC, which is in my left hand here, the iOS device shows better notifications, shows multiple lines per notification, which means I don't have to click through nearly as often to see what the email or what the tweet is about or what the Facebook message is about. Where on Android you do. Now, somebody said this is a problem with Android 4.2.1. This is a brand new phone, direct from the manufacturer, that you can buy at Verizon today. I can't put 4.2.2 on there, the newest OS, if I'm remembering my numbers right. And Kevin, you might jump in here. What's going on here is this is really the Android fragmentation problem rearing its ugly head, isn't it?
Not so much. It's more that the app developers need to update to adopt those new notifications, and if they don't, they get the old one-line one.
Well,
so if you use Path does a good job of this. You get some nice notifications. Facebook Messenger does too, but Twitter has done a fairly bad job of it.
I'm sorry, you're wrong there. Google.
Fairly good ones.
I'm using Google. I'm using the Gmail app, and the Gmail app only has one line for each email. Even if you do spreading it out and trying to pinch it out, it just is substandard. And Google's own app is that bad. So is Facebook. So is Twitter. I haven't found an app yet on any of my. I have 3 Android phones: a Samsung S3, this Verizon DNA HTC DNA, which is a beautiful machine, by the way. I have an HTC One downstairs. It still has the old OS on it, and what else? And the Motorola, which is not nearly as nice as this HTC, the Motorola Max HD. I'm glad I don't do phone reviews for The Verge, because it's really hard to keep track of all these product numbers and what they all do.
Are you going to defend yourself, Kevin?
Well, I say have a look at how Path handles notifications, because it does it right. Right. Twitter is bad at this, and Facebook is bad at this. Facebook Messenger is quite good, and the G Plus ones come through fairly well as well, but a lot of the others are behind. Now the Gmail ones will do the collapse multiple lines into one thing, but that's
no. Be careful how you describe this, because it collapses multiple emails into one line. Yeah. And then you can uncollapse it, but it's still single lines, and it doesn't show you very many words. I mean, you can see it here you know, that you just can't see very many words on each notification. Where on iOS, you can really see 3 separate lines per notification, and it's much easier to read. It's much easier to get something out of.
I'm not sure you'll actually be able to see this because of the low res.
Yeah.
But I'll try it still. No. So. Yeah, what they need to do is use a custom layout for the notifications to show more, and if you don't, you just get a single line and a single name. You do get the action buttons. What I was trying to show you there is I've got a missed call and I've got an action button to call back or send a message. That is a good thing. But
that is cool.
Everyone has caught up this yet.
That is cool. There are some advantages. You can delete all messages on Android, which on iOS you have to delete them by type. So if you have 15 different kinds of notifications and you actually want to clear that notification screen, you have to click 15 times to close all notifications. But in other words, there's no perfect system yet. And it drives me nuts coming back and forth.
Some are better than others.
I'd
say it may not be
say
perfect, but I mean, I've been trying to say this for months. I'm heartened that you are saying it now, so I can take a vacation.
Well, okay, I've given Android hell. Now I'm going to give iOS hell. The keyboard, the SwiftKey keyboard, is far superior to the iOS keyboard. I am already in a week 50% faster typing with the SwiftKey keyboard than with the iOS keyboard because it predicts 3 words and lets me type ahead. So all I have to do is type EX, and it puts extraordinary as one of the words, and I just click on the word, and it saves me a lot of keying. And once you get used to it, holy shit, can you type fast? And Apple is way behind there. And for a journalist like me who needs to take notes on my mobile device, this is a huge, huge deal and worth putting up with the pain of the notifications.
Will it anticipate holy shit?
Yeah, it actually does. I'll try to demo that in a little while. I'm downloading Path right now so that we can check out the theory that Path does notifications better than the other ones.
Okay, excellent. While you're looking for that, Danny Sullivan, what's floating your boat these days?
Gosh, where to begin? I was actually curious, Robert, you like Swipe. Do you do a lot of typing when you're walking?
Not so much.
Yeah.
I'm usually, when I'm doing hardcore typing, I'm sitting someplace.
That's been the weakness for me with a lot of the Android phones, where I feel like the iPhone has actually been really excellent, which is most of the stuff I'm doing on my phone, I'm doing it one-handed, and I'm doing it with my thumb. And, you know, I had the Galaxy S3 is probably the worst of the lots that I've had, and I've had everybody say, yeah, I agree the keyboard's terrible, you should get Swipe. And it's like, well, now I'm having to do this as I'm walking, and you know, if I'm in an airport or something like that, and I'm carrying a bag.
I'm not using Swipe. I'm using SwiftKey, and I'm not using the flow-based, gesture-based keyboard. I'm using old style. But what it does is when you type EX, it gets ahead and tries to guess what I'm going to type as the word, and then I can click on the word. It's
good.
It's much nicer, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I had fun last week. I did a thing where I had my 2 kids, which are iPhone users. They've been testing Windows Phone for about a month, where they had seen the ads on TV and they had asked if I had that kind of phone. And I said yeah, and they said could they try it, and I said, all right, well, let's see if maybe I can get you guys some review phones and you can see what you think of it. And they're 12 and 14, and I switched them off the iPhone, and my 14-year-old was like, as soon as he realized there was no Instagram, he was done. He was just like, I can't use this phone. He's so tied into Instagram. And it was really interesting because it really was a killer app that, you know, I find most phones don't, in my view, have a killer app, you know, that you can find substitutes or things like that. But this really was one like, yeah, there's no Instagram, I'm not using it. But my 12-year-old completely...
I hit another killer app for Windows Phone. I had dinner with one of the top Windows programmers the other night, Jeff Procyse, who wrote the big-ass thick book on developing with the Windows API back in the 90s. And he was running late for...
What is that, small, medium, and big-ass?
big ass, like a big thick book. I think I have it back here on the shelf somewhere. I mean, it's something you could probably kill somebody with if you threw it the right way. And he was running late for dinner, and I sort of joked around on Twitter. I go, my first instinct was, oh, he doesn't have Waze because he's not going around the Silicon Valley traffic, because Waze routes you around traffic. And sure enough, he shows up with a Windows phone, and the first thing we do is sit down and try to get Waze, and there's no Waze for it. It's like, dude, that is my killer app for commuting around the world. Waze, to me, is better than Google Maps in many ways. Particularly in Silicon Valley, for watching out for cops, seeing accidents on the road, and it reroutes you around things. Very, very killer app. And I wouldn't consider a phone that couldn't get an app like Waze on it. Just one app, right? And we haven't even started talking about the 220 apps I have.
Right. Well, that was definitely it for him. Was Instagram was one that just killed it in a stop. But my 12-year-old, he switched. he was perfectly happy switching. He just, for him, it was really the larger screen, which could be applicable to an Android phone as well. But it was really one of those things you just weren't going to get with an iPhone. He really wanted that larger screen. Really started like getting addicted to watching stuff, on his like Netflix or whatever that he could watch on over that, and I was really happy with it. So it was really interesting to watch them change.
I spoiled my kids. They all have their own iPad, so big screen isn't a draw for them. And I don't know. Yeah.
So just to get into this argument for a second, I now have the Logitech mini keyboard.
Oh yeah, with the iPad Mini. That's hard to find, isn't it?
Not the day that it came in at the Stone Apple Store. There were 10 of them, and I got the first one. It's really good. I was afraid that it was going to be too small, and it is in fact an acquired habit.
Danny brings up something else that I've seen as a meme in the tech press, that the kids are the ones who decide on the future of technology, or at least that sort of.
Well, no, they weren't though. In this case, I mean, they can be, but what was interesting in this case was, while one of them liked the Windows Phone, if I were buying it, they weren't getting it, right? They get our cast-offs, so it wasn't an issue of, wow, my son likes a bigger screen, therefore that's going to be the future where we go. It was going to be, no, you're going to get whatever I decided was important. Although I think there's the influence the other way as well. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just kids are. I see this meme or this belief that kids are going to tell us where the future social networking is going or whatnot. I just don't find that to ring true to me. I have a 19-year-old, and he just is not a bellwether of where I think the technology industry is going. I mean, I showed him Flipboard, for instance, and he's like, eh. And then I bring him into Ashton Kutcher, and Ashton Kutcher gets in an argument with him. Which might
about what? About
Flipboard, about the future of anything. He's not an advanced user of any technology, and also his social networking behavior is very, very non-professional. Very, he only wants to text to 1 or 2 or 4 group of people, his friends. And even as a 19-year-old, and he was certainly that way in high school, and most of his friends were. I talked to lots of his friends. They're just not. They're not in the right place in their lives to be thinking about putting a lot of professional content out there and building brand and building audiences and pushing these tools to the utmost.
Yeah, they're going to get there. They're going to get there pretty quickly. Number one.
They will.
Number two.
As they go through college, they definitely become more astute around that, because they realize, hey, as you go through college, year 3 and 4 is all about, oh, I better start thinking about getting a job, and I'm going to be not living with dad and mom anymore. I'm not going to be getting everything paid for anymore. I'm going to need to have a living. And so they start changing.
Oh, that happens? Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware that we were going to stop paying.
Oh, yeah, I am. I will pay.
Dream on, Robert.
I'm paying a lot of money for college and for 4 years or whatnot, but at some point it cuts off, right? It's like,
We'll
get
see.
a job, dude.
I don't know. The trend is going the other direction. Kids are moving back into their parents'
Yeah,
home at the age
if
of
they
30.
want to move back in here, they're gonna have to work their ass off to stay here.
Okay, well, we'll see.
My dad made me get a job, right? When I lived at home, he said, "You either get a job or go to school." You know.
Yeah, I walked 10 miles to school. No, I never did. Um,
Anyways,
the
my point is that the behavior of high school kids might lead you to think the industry is going to Snapchat, for instance, where I just don't find that to be true at all in any other
Okay,
context.
so I understand your perspective, and I think you're absolutely right on the surface, and maybe you're right on other devices. But the thing that is, I think, closer to what will happen. I mean, Instagram, for example, I have absolutely no use for Instagram. What it does for the kids is that it rolls up Twitter, which they have no use for, and pictures. So what happens? Eventually we get, what is the name of that app now? Vine, is it, Kevin?
Yeah.
The
video one, yeah.
Yeah, which is essentially adding video. The other services will eventually all conform, much like the conversation about notifications. Eventually, the two competing superpowers will effectively be rendered, identical, just by evolution. Am I talking to myself?
Well, no,
that would make sense. They could copy things back and forth and converge, and that's the notifications back and forth is being part of that. Talking about our kids, my oldest has picked up the Nexus 7 that my youngest got it from Google I/O and has adopted that as his main thing now. He's using that all the time because he can watch TV on it, or watch movies on it, and he can read books on it, and it works as a generalized chat machine. And he's quite happy using that over using a phone, and over using a laptop, and over using his iPad, which just sits there in the drawer now.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with you, Robert, in the sense that the kids actually, or maybe I'm disagreeing with that part of it, but I think you would agree with me that what the kids are into isn't going to determine what everybody is into, but it is going to weigh in as, it's like Fox. They cover the conservative perspective, and MSNBC covers the liberal perspective, and over time, you add it up, and it's what you get with CNN, which is horrible.
Well, the kids. I remember talking with Chris Putnam, who became Facebook's best hacker, and I met him when he was 16. There are certain people in society who push the limits of all sorts of things, partly because they have time to sit around and just play around. I don't have a lot of time to play around with all these cool new things, even though I really try to. But like my son spent 1,000 hours in World of Warcraft, and I didn't have the 1,000 hours to dedicate to playing with a game that way. And so he has a different experience, and those experiences do come out as companies and as trends sometimes. But you can't over listen to the kids. You'll get misled once in a while if you listen to the kids.
Yeah, and besides which, it's the people like you who are the adult kids who are extremely important as well.
Yeah, I get paid to be on Facebook all day long. I mean, when I was at LinkedIn, I met a girl who is paid to be on Facebook and gets paid by LinkedIn to be on Facebook all day, or on Twitter and Facebook. Imagine telling your parents you were going to have that kind of career 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It just is a pretty crazy world.
So, Danny, getting back to you, what other things have you been covering on Search Engine Land, and just in general? Do you have anything to tell us about Google's rush to the bottom?
They're on a rush to the bottom? I didn't know they were on a rush to the bottom. I mean, I didn't catch if there was a big discussion last week on Google Reader. It's certainly interesting to watch how, their killing of that product has caused, I think, the tech press to suddenly go for their throats. That you saw this when Google rolled out their Google. I can't even remember. They couldn't give it a decent name like Keep, because Google Notes would have been too easy, right? So they roll out this note-taking product, and then I think Malik probably had the biggest reaction was, "Why would I believe you?" And actually, you kill everything, and actually a number of people
I don't know.
that.
Hates Facebook too. I know,
but let me. That was his reaction. A number of other tech people also had the same kind of reaction. Even I had the reaction, not just because they killed Google Reader, but just because this is like the second, if not the third, time they've done a notes product that they killed. But really what I've seen, and I felt like since they killed Reader, was that you've got, the tech press is kind of feeling like, we really depended on Reader a lot, and you disrespected it, and now, we don't have a lot of respect for you. I don't think Google users give a toss. I think Google users haven't even noticed it's a big difference. So, race to the bottom on a PR front, maybe. Race to the bottom in terms of being a company, I don't see where that's coming from.
Okay, so are they doing anything right, or do you think that their strategy with killing off, less than revenue-based products is the right thing to do?
Well, I think it's good for any company to be focused on the products that you're offering and not to launch out different things unless you're not going to stand by them. I mean, it's hard. You're going to launch all sorts of things and things have to change. But have they hit like record stock prices and they're picking up all sorts of usage? And in general, it depends on how you want to evaluate what they're doing. From a business standpoint, they seem to be hitting all the marks right. From we don't want to be evil, we're the happy, lovable company that you want to hug and hold close to your company, your chest. No, I don't think they've been that company for some time.
Danny, in the early days of Google Plus, Vic said he said something astute or something that stuck with me, that Google Plus had many more users than they were planning on, and that they were having to go around the company and find server space. Is this an example of Google running out of server space for their bigger properties like YouTube, which has 1 billion users? And
you mean, is that why we kill Reader, because we need that? I don't think so. I think it's probably more related to, do people want to work on it? Does it actually seem as valuable, as important? I think there's some validity to the idea that RSS is dead from a consumer-facing standpoint.
I haven't heard that.
Well, every few months somebody's going, RSS is dead.
It's me. Well, 2009.
Steve.
Google is not short of server space. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, this is Google. It's not bullshit. It is bullshit. I mean, we've got. When I wrote that article in 2009, there was. We had Bear Hug Camp. We had, horror at every reboot of Facebook's news stream and what it was going to do to destroy our privacy, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we've got these huge mega corporations that are worth billions of dollars, and Jack, what's his name, is a billionaire. So, to say that RSS wasn't just, let's put it this way, they were in the right-hand lane, and they were passed by Twitter and then Facebook going 100 miles an hour. Now, of course, institutionally, they were, RSS continues to be a major factor, but in terms of companies and developers betting on it, it ain't happening. It hasn't for a long time.
And you know what? I was the Google Reader's #1 user for 2 years, so I actually have a lot of love in my past for the product, but it just never went mainstream. It never got that exponential growth that everybody wants to see with their product, where Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus even have seen that exponential growth. And I can imagine, the conversations internally were just data focused and saying, hey, man, you're not getting the growth. We're going to take your 3 developers or 5 or 10 or whatever it was and put them somewhere else, and take your servers and use them for something else.
Basically, it's been about a 20% time for ages. There's been no one officially working on it, and they've finally said, okay, we're going to try and shut this down. And yeah, from Google's point of view, 1 million users is too small. That's part of the problem. So 500,000 users can migrate to another service in a week and cause them trouble. And for Google, it's like drop in the bucket, we don't care. And that is a problem if you are part of that group, very much so.
Well, now, didn't Apple rejigger their podcasting technology in the last day or two?
Yep, yesterday.
Okay, so, I mean...
They fixed the app, made it not have a take set in it, yeah.
But, I mean, that is development in the RSS space, isn't it?
Yeah, but, nobody knows it's RSS. I mean, here, let me show you the new... I have the Twit podcast here, and there's no such thing as RSS anywhere. No end user knows this is RSS. They just know it's a feed that you subscribe to. And that's part of the problem, is RSS didn't have a PR team to
that's part of the
explain.
value. The fact that it is a feed and that they understand the use of it is good. They don't have to know that it's RSS.
Yeah, I don't think that's part of the problem. I think that's Dave Weiner's reaction to articles like the one that I wrote. Insisted upon basically grafting a lot of the RSS services, RSS River, whatever the things that he did were an attempt to, which I think was successful and also smart, was to blur the distinction between social streams and RSS streams. I don't think that it fundamentally works, simply because I think that being able to follow people rather than RSS output is a far more efficient way of consuming information, because you get the advantage of having the people that you follow effectively curate your incoming stream, which is just it's a faster way if you can identify through the use of @ mentions and other such strategies, if you can identify the people that are going to do your work for you in terms of figuring out what's important. It's just a hell of a lot more efficient and consumable. I guess everybody agrees with me, or else they would be saying something.
I think I'm
right?
tired of the argument, because what happened was the social web killed it. And next week, Flipboard has something new coming out, which will even exacerbate that even more. The social web is where all the action is. It's where the content now for me is, because I have Facebook and Quora and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and on and on. All of these things I don't view as RSS things anymore. Blogs I got blogs through an RSS reader. I don't use a reader like I used to use in Google to get all this new stuff. And this is where the heat is. This is where the billion people are. Billion people are on YouTube. Is there RSS underneath? Probably, but nobody even thinks about the fact that when you subscribe to a YouTube feed on YouTube, that it's RSS underneath, or some sort of XML format being spread around it underneath.
Well, but I think that, so, like I said, there was all this heat and discussion, whereas I think most people aren't using RSS. They get a very small and loyal audience, and especially in perhaps, influencer audience that is using it. But it's an important tool for them. They really are depending on it. They're not just like, well, I can just depend on social to find everything for me. I mean, I agree. As somebody who's in the news space, I see a lot of stuff that's out on social. But a lot of that stuff that happens out on social is because someone on a news site actually spotted it because they had a direct RSS feed in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So that group, Google basically just said, screw you. You're not valuable to us. You're not even valuable to us for the point of saying, we want to charge you for this service. So, Yeah, that's had some backlash in their corners, and it's surprising because you would think that there would be some value there, but even a paid service is apparently not worth it to Google. I think what's most surprising is that rather than kill Reader, they couldn't find a way to just merge Reader into Google Plus. I mean, they probably would have had even more backlash if they were doing it, but at least they would have kept some of those people. Maybe there was a way that they could have merged it in there, and maybe there's a way they could have used that to further help Google Plus, which still sometimes just feels like it's lacking content over there. I mean, they got stuff, and if I hit Explore now, I'll see things, although typically it's like, woo, here's this awesome thing at Google, or here's an thing against Google. I'm going through Google Explorer right now, right?
Yeah.
Apple security flaw, no surprise.
No, I think you're honest.
That's a Google thing. The Game of Thrones thing. Okay, that's good. Makes sense. That's cool. That's hot. Oh, look, Apple's iPhone is outdated. That's hot from Time. Surprise. Animated map of the internet. Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of fun thing that's going on there. Here's the thing on Motor Trends on the Shelby car that's going on. DuckTales.
What are you reading
on. So
from?
that's kind of interesting. Well, in Google Plus, there's the thing where you can go and you can hit Explore and you can see hot stuff that's being shared across the network. But typically, oh, look, here's a thing on Samsung and the iPhone. And it can be very pro-Google or anti anything that's not pro-Google or really hot Google Plus. And, oh, look, Google Glass is hot on Google Plus. Surprise! In contrast, when you go to Facebook, first of all, you can't really explore what's being shared by everybody. But one of the things I do find when you're out on Facebook is the things that I find shared by people that I'm following there are not necessarily woot Facebook or anti everybody else. I get a good diverse mix of things in my Facebook stream, which can be, this is a cool Facebook feature, this is not a good Facebook feature, this has nothing to do with Facebook. So, to maybe somehow figure a way to put some more of that Google Reader stuff into, what's going on with Google Plus, that might have been helpful. But you still probably would have had a lot of people who just weren't going to be happy and felt like it was yet another thing to try to push, everything into Google Plus.
But and that's happening. There's something deeper with Google Plus, and it articulates itself throughout the product. The discovery of interesting people is really, really difficult. For instance, Google Plus, and unfortunately my Skype is not working that well today, but Google Plus over here is recommending different people to me. When I click on those people, invariably those people have never even posted on Google Plus. In other words, it's pushing people to me who are popular in my social graph for some reason because they have a big name, but they're not people who have added a lot of value to the community. And Facebook is doing something very different. They're really protecting the social graph and trying to get you to subscribe to people who are interesting to you and push a lot of people who are interesting to you. In fact, last night I was playing with the new graph search, and I just did friends of friends. And I just went through and looked at everybody. It just showed me who's a friend of a friend. And the people it pushed to me were not just my friends, but were people who had lots of content and had lots of interesting things to look at. And that's a huge difference. The long tail on Facebook is much, much better than the long tail on Google Plus. And same thing on Twitter. If you find somebody, a million down with a clout score of 30, they will be more interesting than a similar kind of person on Google Plus. And that's what you're feeling when you say there's not much good content on Google Plus, where there's just so much better content and so much deeper content on Facebook.
Well, what I think is happening is that this is starting to sort out a lot like the way that the main 3 or 4 television networks sorted out, which is that you'll find that a CBS has more of an older audience, ABC has more of a younger sort of trending into Disney audience, and we can talk about the differences between the TV networks, but that's getting completely disrupted by Netflix and others. But what I see happening with I don't think it's an accident that Robert started talking on this show about complaining about notifications, because what notifications do to these different kinds of social strategies is they essentially merge them, multiplex them into one stream. And over time, you start to look for different kinds of content on different networks, and they become part of a larger experience, not competitive with each other, particularly. Comments?
To the degree that people are on multiple networks, maybe. I don't get the impression most people are actively on and using multiple networks. I mean, I'm on Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter every day, constantly.
That's what I said. Those three networks, and I wouldn't even say that Google Plus is.
I know, but that's
real.
me, and that's me, and I deal with marketing and I deal with social media. People that I know that are just normals, they're on one, right? They're on one. They're on Facebook or they're on Twitter. I don't think
that's accurate. I think that people are on Twitter on a sort of ambient level. If there's something happening in the news, they don't go to Facebook for it because they're not going to find out.
I think you guys are missing another one that they're on.
Instagram.
The normal people. LinkedIn. Because if normal people want a job, Jenny, you and I can get a job anywhere in the industry, let's be honest. LinkedIn, for normal people, though, like my brothers who are engineers, they need to be on LinkedIn, and they are on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly right. They've been very smart, much the way Instagram co-opted the Twitter comment model. LinkedIn has also done a very smart thing with their content because it's frequently more authoritative. It starts to show up as link references on the other networks. You take a look at the URL and you realize this is content that's being posted on LinkedIn to begin with, as though it was, I forget what those New York-based networks are called, or Tumblr, things like that. It seems to have sort of found a space in the middle. But I also think that what you just said, Robert, illustrates the notifications point, which is that LinkedIn has, you look to these networks at a varying degree of efficiency. Since Chatter started to put out notifications and increase the filtering capabilities for it, it's become a much more valuable part of the notification mix. And I believe that we're in the early stages of seeing that.
But I think the notification thing is... So, first of all, my personal bias is I hate notifications on my phone. Just hate it. Hate it.
Why? Unpack why.
Because, first of all, it means that my phone's going off and doing stuff and using up my battery. Number one.
Get a Mophie pen.
Yeah, really.
Why? I turn off my notifications and it's fine.
Okay.
Secondly,
you really hate notifications then?
I really hate notifications. I have a whole column on just how difficult it is, by the way, to turn them off in something like iOS, where you would think taking something out of Notification Center would turn your notifications off, but no, it doesn't. You still have to go through and say, even though it's not in the Notification Center, I still don't want alerts and do all this other stuff. But I don't like notifications, and it's primarily a battery thing. And
Danny,
because
somebody has to have that position, and I'm glad it's you.
I know. I'm just saying first of all, I'm declaring my personal bias to it.
It's really easy, by the way, to look at iOS notifications. If it has a word underneath, like banners or sounds or something like that, that means you haven't turned off all the notifications. You are right. You have to go through each one.
It shouldn't be that hard.
It's way harder on Android. On Android, you have to actually go to the app and hit settings on the app.
It sucks on them all. It's all on my list to go back and say, what the hell is wrong with you people? Because if I press on
Android, you can turn it off there.
It's really terrible. I mean, I don't want to go into each one of my apps and try to figure out whether or not they're doing stuff in the background if I can help it. But let me kind of get past that. My first thing is I don't like notifications, but secondly, I don't think that if you're trying to figure out what's going on across multiple social networks, getting it to show up on the top of, your phone is the way that you do it. I think that while we are on our mobile phones and we get it, it's also easy to miss those kind of notifications. I think that where you really see that kind of thing that you're talking about coming into play is what Facebook has been doing and actually came under fire for doing with their newsfeed, which is you go into the Facebook newsfeed and it's not first in, last out. It is some degree of what I kind of called a DVR mechanism, where they're trying to show you the stuff that they think is most important to you. And they're trying to show you that stuff whether or not it's actually a few hours old or even a day old. They're putting it up there at the front because you're missing everything. There's no way you're seeing everything. And this is what the debate we had about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Nick Bilton was saying, well, I'm not getting all the engagement. I want my fans to see everything I post. And it sounds logical, it sounds rational, right? And it sounds like, yeah, Facebook, what the hell is wrong with you not showing every single thing I do out there? If I'm following someone, I want to see everything they do. But that's eventually the Twitter model. Like, and if you step back and you think a bit more, you never see everything everybody does on Twitter. You only see the stuff when you're constantly glued to Twitter. And when you're stepping away from it, you're missing all that stuff.
Yeah,
so you're looking for that.
Danny,
you're looking. You're looking for that balance between something go out and find me and curate for me all the best stuff that I really do care about, kind of record it, DVR for it, whatever for me. And then, maybe I want the breaking stuff because I really am tuned in. I want the live TV or whatever that's kind of going with it. And I think that goes back to what Robert was saying about how social's killing off all the RSS stuff and everything. It is sort of turning into, this crowd wisdom of taking in RSS and all these kinds of feeds and everybody sharing it out, but it still has a long way of going.
Yeah, but hang on a second. First of all, what Robert's done at great time expense and incredible numbers of Gillmor gangs explaining the same thing over and over again is he's developed an incredibly efficient filtering mechanism that sort of solves this problem better than any other thing. I mean, the problem with Facebook for me is they don't give you the tools to do what they're trying to do. Their DVR mechanism, as you call it, is, in fact, it's excellent. But why can't we have control of the levers?
Well, you sort of do more now.
Sort of, yeah. If you do what I just said, which is if you have, if you're like Robert and you put together 10,000 lists.
Well, but one reason is
you do all this stuff.
Yeah, but by the way, Danny, hold on a second here. Look who's in my close friend list. You're on there. Now, what does that mean that I put Danny Sullivan on my close friend list? It means I want to see more items from Danny than I want to see from, let's say, my brother, who I didn't put on my close friend list, and I put him on my acquaintance list, because the acquaintance list shows me fewer things on my main news feed than my
guess what?
close
The
friend
reason
list.
that I do it is because you showed it to me, and it has the ability to be able to set up a notifications stream. And that notification stream has made my consumption of Facebook multiply by 1,000%.
By the way,
it's very finite.
These are the new notifications in the new Facebook design that's coming out over the next few months. And notice the little ones with the stars. That's from somebody that I put on my close friend list. So it is showing me more notifications from my close friends than from my acquaintances. And I can click on that feed and see everything my family sends in a separate feed from my close friends. And I can see now there's an all friends list, which is really cool because I can see everything. And that's different from the main newsfeed. The problem, though, is just describing this, is Facebook is getting more complex. It's losing the simplicity it once had. And it's becoming a tool for people like me to push around that I spend a lot of time on curating my friend list. I was up till 3 a.m. deleting friends and moving them around.
But you're not normal, Robert.
I know I'm not normal, but a lot of people are doing this, by the way. I'm seeing more and more people who are astute and have lists of at least close friends and family so that they can see their separate social streams in some way. Because we want to see those two things separate.
Over.
What's that?
Close friends is an opportunity to start over.
But in fact, if I'm not mistaken,
Facebook, I think it actually works.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that Facebook actually creates a close friends page for you to begin with, doesn't it?
A what page?
Doesn't it already create a close friends? It's already making some assumptions to start you off, even if you haven't done
No,
that.
it suggests you, Simon. It gives you a walkthrough and says these people we think are your close friends, are they? And you go, oh yeah, that's my son, whatever. And then you've got some.
Yeah. And it does that also if you click on the family list, it'll say, hey, these 4 people probably are your family members. Are they really? And you go, yeah, those people are my family members. And then you tell it a little bit more about your family group. And it takes time.
I mean, I think that, Danny's and Robert's points, well, everybody's points are well taken, including mine. But I do want to defend notifications for just a minute, because I know that Danny doesn't have an interest in that particular use case. I do a lot of traveling. I know Danny does too, but I rely on notifications. It's a small buffer, granted, and you do need a DVR capability, and I end up looking for that in the kind of tools that actually provide that independently of this, which is a whole other story. But the bottom line is that I can skip through. I wake up, I can go through 4 or 5 pages of the notification stream, and I know at an equal level of weighting. I know instant messages, I know texts, I know Facebook, I know Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. This is it's a universal inbox for me, and it is. I will, when I'm moving around, when I'm traveling, on the way to work, etc., regardless of what the traffic laws state, this is the only way that I can actually keep up to speed with what it is that I'm doing during the day. So I use it all the time.
I do too. I used to be like Danny. I turned off all notifications because they bothered me. They kept taking me off of my focus. But then I started using it the other way, which was just pour all of these really interesting notifications into my phone, and I find it invaluable. That's why I'm so attuned with the differences between the 2 platforms, because I started relying on them so much, particularly at South by Southwest, because I had GroupMe coming in as notifications, and I had Foursquare and Path and Twitter. And by the way, on Twitter now you can choose to see notifications from specific people. So like Danny is one of the people I watch because he's really a good news curator, especially in the search industry. So if he tweets something, it almost always has some value to me. I want to see that in real time so that I can participate with him on what he's communicating, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, to Danny's point, that is what kills the battery. More than anything is when you have, like I have about 150 people on that instant notification of anything that they say. On the other hand, the complaint about it, you can't possibly see all these things. If I'm unconscious, I'm not going to react to it anyway. So what do I care?
I've curated my notifications though, so that I can see most of the notifications that come to my lock screens. By the way, Foursquare, for instance, lets me go granularly per member to see all items. So like Dennis Crowley, the CEO, I want to see where he's checking in all time because he's interesting to watch when he Foursquares. Other people I want to see only when they're close to me. So like I think Danny I set to see his Foursquares only when he's close to me. So when he's up in San Francisco or when I'm down in LA, I see him. And then other people I say, no, I don't ever want to see them check in. I really don't care about them. And so I've curated each service's notifications to be as efficient as I can be on all my devices.
And I guess it comes down to what Kevin said, which is that the Android deficiencies right now are as much, if not more, a function of what the individual third-party products are doing with the platform. I do think, though, that just their common one-line interface, I think as a sort of best practice, I think it really misses the point. It's the lock screen settings that I have everybody on lock screen that I track in notifications, because I will constantly, it's a socially acceptable thing to do when I'm in a session with an analyst is to just glance over at that stream.
Yeah.
With the iPhone in my hand or the iPad, and I got my face buried in that, not acceptable for a lot of reasons. So it turns out that it becomes an operational tool which is dominant.
Yeah. I agree with you. And by the way, now that I'm on Android as a phone platform, I'm not using my iPhone as a phone platform. I'm almost always carrying my iPad mini because that way I get the best of both worlds. I get the notifications sitting there on my desk next to me, and I get the fast typing on my Android phone when I need it. So I've sort of solved for the use case. Now, what's really going to be interesting is when I get the Google Glass, does that have better notifications built into the glass? And I'm seeing indications that it does. Phil Libin at Evernote is the first person I've seen outside of Google with a pair of glasses. And he says he's wearing them even while working in front of his two monitors because of these notifications that come into the glass and wake the glass up and show him something interesting. And I want to see if that changes my behavior in a real way. And that's sort of why I went to Android to get ready for this new Google Glass.
So Dan, we know what Robert feels about the Google Glass. Danny, what's your take? Are you excited like he is? Nobody's excited like Robert is, but are you close?
Yeah, I mean, who isn't going to be excited about them? I mean, it's cool, cutting edge tech. How can you not be excited about that? What'll be interesting
I'm not excited
to see.
About it.
Well, then but you don't have a Roku either, so. I'm just teasing you. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I would like to try them. I mean, I love all sorts of new tech, and I'll be, I'm really eager to actually use them and see what they're like and see if I actually get, the value out of it. I think that a couple questions, will be, am I excited if I actually had to pay $1,500 for them as a consumer?
Yeah.
How well does it actually work coming into play? Those sorts of things. But there's been times when I've thought it would have been really handy to be having a device like that where I could turn on the recording and just have it sit there. Press conferences, for example, it's a pain to be doing this to record stuff. I could just turn it on and talk to somebody and be able to maintain eye contact with them and know that as I'm looking at them, I'm filming them. That would be nice. I suppose it might be cool to be taking pictures in the way that it does, where I'm not having to stop and do this all the time. So yeah, the navigation stuff, if I'm walking around, I mean, the navigation, it's got to be easier to have guidance coming up here. Oh, are you still there?
I am.
Somebody is.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be better to have your guidance coming up here than what we see like this all the time, right?
Yeah.
South by Southwest is just great, right? That was like there 2 weeks ago. And it's constantly like this. I always joke that if I were going to build a smartphone, I'd build a camera that was like right here angled, and so that when you're walking around, you had a heads-up display of what you were about to walk into. I think it'd be great because we all walk this way, right? So it'd be nice if your phone kind of gave you some radar or some alert that you're about to walk into something. So yeah, I'm excited. Bring it on.
Well,
So
I find myself intrigued by something that I never thought that I'd be interested in, which is, the so-called iWatch.
Yeah.
What are you showing me, Robert?
Oh, I saw you post that, Robert. I want those goggles.
Yeah, these are the new Oakley Airwave goggles. They have a heads-up monitor right here. And somebody in the chat room said, well, wearing a computer will mean you're going to walk into things. That is absolutely not true. The display surface is actually down underneath, and you can see through it. It's not like looking into your cell phone, which blocks your viewing. It's much safer to have a heads-up display like these while doing sports or walking around or driving.
Well, that makes sense for sports. I mean, if it's protective of the eyes, then that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
but I think it looks absolutely ludicrous in reality.
Well, these are ski goggles. You're going to have to wear ski goggles anyways, but this has a little heads-up display right here made by Recon Technologies.
I mean, you're not going to run around with goggles, but I mean,
no. But when
goggles
skiing, I'm going to be
skiing
skiing on Sunday in Sun Valley. I'm going to be taking those and using
but
those.
That's the whole point about
I can
Google
see
Cloud.
a corporate version of these that has like what do you call these things? Rain wipers. Just a deal, a little heads-up display that says, "Watch out for this guy. He's trouble." Corporate. I think it'll work. No comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, these are a lot of fun. Somebody says I have to go to Jackson Hole to actually use these. That's not true. I can't ski Jackson Hole. Come on, man. By the way, the heads-up display, so it sits right about here. So you see it down here, and it shows you where on the mountain you are. It shows you where all your friends and family are, because even if they just have an Android app or an iPhone app that they're running, they don't have to have the glasses on. It shows how fast you're going and shows you some other things as well right here. It's really, really
Tina,
cool.
you've got to mute that.
Yeah, I don't know who's making the sound.
It's Kevin.
Ah.
All right, so we're winding down here, and I've got to catch a plane. So let's go around and rather than sum up, I think we've covered this ground pretty carefully. Let's each of you talk about something that we haven't talked about for a few minutes, and see if there are any takers on that, and then we'll wind it down. Let's start with Kevin.
Sorry, I missed the context of the last bit there. What did you want me to talk about?
Something that we haven't talked about, just for a few minutes, and then we'll wind it down.
Oh, well, one thing I found out this week is that Scalable Vector Graphics, SVG, is now installed on more browsers than Flash, which means that it was a sort of interesting web tipping point in terms of what you can use where. So we've now got a web technology that's been sitting around for a while that people have said, oh yeah, I'll use that when that's available, is now at the point where you can use it everywhere and is actually a really good idea to use. But then when I started, it's a vector standard for doing graph type stuff like Flash used to be before it added video and all the other nonsense. And it's just interesting to see that you can do this stuff, it suddenly works everywhere, and it's a really good idea on all these super high def screens like the one Robert's carrying in his pocket now. So that's for me, that was my sort of interesting tech note of the week. What is Robert wearing now?
I'm wearing the Airwave ski goggles.
What happened? Robert, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. No, I'm not muted. I'm wearing the Airwave ski goggles.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do you want to talk about that you haven't talked about?
Well, we didn't talk about Apple's two-factor authentication turning on, and that's important for everybody to go do, even though it's a pain in the ass. Everybody on the show should be learning how to use two-factor authentication. Google has it now, Facebook has it now, and Apple has it now. And that'll help keep you safer in this new world where we're carrying around all of our personal information on these devices.
Okay, well, while you're thinking of anything else, Danny, any other topics you wanted to just briefly bring up?
I've been playing with all those activity things. I've got like two, wristband things on, the Jawbone and the Nike Fuel thing, whatever. See, there's my goal. And I've got a Fitbit, and I'm looking forward to writing up a review of what they're all like.
See, that's why I think the iWatch is going to work, is that it's going to become a notification center. That it's going to not only give you heads up on notifications, but that it's going to require a lot more filtering and a lot more customization for that stream, which is going to open up the whole notification environment. So I think it's going to be a pretty important new device.
Maybe.
the problem for the watch and all of the watches, because Apple's not the only one doing it. I mean, there's Pebble, there's Basis. I have a Basis over here somewhere charging up, and that's another problem, is you got to charge them up. I was out to dinner with 10 people the other night. Not a single person had a watch on their hands. So Apple is going to have to change our culture to having us wear something And I'm not sure that that's going to be as big a deal as people think it's going to be, but they will definitely go after Nike with the Fuel Band, and I think you're right. They're going to go after Pebble with the notification system, which is really what's cool about the Pebble watch is you can see a little bit of notifications here, so you don't have to pull your phone out of your pocket to see that your wife called or that somebody tweeted at you or something like that.
Yeah, I think. We're entering an era of context based on your proximity to what screen is most useful or what audio cue is most useful to you, depending upon what you're doing. And so I don't think it's going to be a big deal for people to readopt watches when right now what I have to do, if I want to find out what time it is, I have to reach into my pocket and then push the button to see what time it is on my phone.
Yeah, see, I'm going to have that in the Google Glass. So I'm going all in where I want a screen in my eye all day long. In fact, Phil said one of the things that he doesn't like about the Google Glass is that it turns off after a couple seconds to save battery, and then you have to raise your head a little bit to turn it back on.
Bingo.
And do something with it. And the watch is going to be similar, right? Because I have lots of watches, and if they get too bright with the screen and they try to do too much, they suck power. And these batteries are really, really small. So if you want it to last, 3 days, good luck with that. What I'm going to do with the glass is I'm going to jack in a Mophie pack, and I'm going to, the battery argument just does not wash with me at all. If you care about using the stuff and you want it to stay on all day long, you want the utility of having notification streams spraying at you, then get a freaking Mophie pack and jack in. The arguments sound the same way as in the mid-'90s when everybody was like, oh, I can't afford Microsoft Office because it takes half my hard drive. A hard drive back then was $2,000 for a gigabyte, 1 gigabyte hard drive, and Office would take half of it. And people would be like, oh, my God, that costs $1,000 of hard drive space. I said, I just didn't care about those arguments either. I said, stay alive in a year, and the hard drive will be $1,000, and then it'll be $500. And sure enough, today, a drive is 4 terabytes for $129 at Fry's. So,
21st century Rip Van Winkle, get a freaking Moby pack and jack in.
Jack in, baby.
Head will explode.
Jack in. At South by Southwest, I was carrying 2 Mophie packs. By the way, it's a great way to pick up girls. Hey, baby, you want some power? Your phone's dead. You want a hit of the internet? I got it.
Yeah, but then they have to calculate if they really want to stay around you long enough to get the charge.
Well, they have to talk to me for 5 minutes to get the charge, get a little hit of the internet.
It's a lead gen thing. Huh?
Once they have to do that, they go buy a Mophie pack, and it's over, right? My wife is carrying a Mophie pack now. We're all, just get a Mophie pack. It solves all problems.
In other words, just think like Scoble instead of going insane by thinking.
No, you're gonna want the internet. I watch people. They're walking around the street like this, with their big ass Android screen. You're already 90% of the way there to Google Glass. Why not go all the way?
We need an app for the show that translates Scoble. Get your big ass freaking Moby pack and jack in.
If I was smart, I'd open a store and sell Mophie packs because everybody's gonna want one next year. In fact, you should have a store at the airport for South by Southwest.
Robert, are you talking about the packs that clip onto your phone, or are you talking about a separate pack?
I carry 2 separate packs. Yeah, they're big ass batteries, and I have a cable. It sits in my pocket, and I have the cable going up to.
You don't like the Zag? You haven't used the Zag Sparks then, or you don't like those? Because that's what I carry. So you keep talking the Mophie, and I'm like going,
whatever battery makes you happy, I don't care. Just carry an extra battery,
Yeah.
A slide-on extra battery on the outside of your device works great. That'll give you 1 to 2 extra charges. I was carrying a big. Let me see. Hold on a second. I'll go get it.
Is this man insane? Film at 11.
Well, I can start dragging out the battery pack lays off on it.
This big ass Mophie pack.
We've got for the Apple, the Hyperjuice is really great, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's my small one. I have the larger one. And then the Zag Spark.
My Mophie pack has
like
a USB or a
like
mini
that.
USB here.
So that comes over there. I have a couple of those.
Yeah, see,
Those
Danny, you're already carrying all the batteries, so don't give me no crap about your notifications wearing out your batteries. Come on.
Well, it's when I carry those when I'm at an event and I have a backpack. But like when I'm walking around South by and I don't have my backpack, I've got two phones with me, so that's another reason, right? I've usually got two phones, so I've got one I've got in airplane mode, and I flip-flop between them. But I still don't like notifications. I'm very paranoid about batteries. So I turn all that stuff off.
I'm not. This thing went, even with other people charging off of it, it went all the way till 6 a.m. with more charge left. And that's all I needed. And I was carrying two of these.
I'm going to miss my plane. This is Steve Gillmor. This has been the Gillmor Gang. I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess, without which the show would not be back on the air. I want to thank my MobiPack or whatever it is for getting me through this show. I want to thank Newtek and their TriCaster. I want to thank the Ames Hotel here in Boston. I want to thank Robert Scoble.
And my Mophie pack.
I want to thank Danny Sullivan.
And thank you.
Okay. I want to thank Kevin Marks, who I know. He's back.
I'm here but invisible.
All right, I really have to go. Thank you once again. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. If there's anybody in the chat room who's
still there,
can summarize the show, maybe they can write the intro for TechCrunch for me, because I'm not going to do it until I get on the plane. Tina?
It's all about the batteries, baby.
Let's put this one in the bank. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.